When the holidays start to feel a bit repetitive, reach for a Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry and put your twist on tradition. A bold cranberry and winter spice flavor fusion, Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry is a refreshing way to shake things up this sipping season. And only for a limited time. Sprite. Obey your thirst.
Oh, Hilton stay, your beds are soft and cozy. No lumpy couch, no stiff futon, no shower line at crack of dawn. Oh, Hilton stay, a holiday you're saving.
When you want holiday comfort you can count on, it matters where you stay. This season, enjoy spacious, comfortable rooms and friendly service when you book with Hilton instead. Hilton for the stay.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Beyond Sports. It is Hannah Stanley. I am here with Dr. Raj Dasgupta, which means it's the first weekend in August. I cannot believe we've already been doing this for 8 months, you and I. We've known each other. I was thinking about this earlier, though. I think the first time I interviewed you was during COVID, which feels like a generation ago, even though it was really only 5-6 years, right?
And look what happened. I first met you. It was like you and two other dudes.
Yeah.
It was like the Hammond Family Show interviewing me. But now look at us. You know, our love just shone through. And now we're together, you know?
Yeah. No, but I love having you on every month. I really look forward to it. And I like that throughout the month, I can think to myself, oh, good, this is being a great topic. Because I'm guessing many people do, not necessarily questions, but things that pique my interest about medical stuff. And I will tell you, a lot of it's from commercials because they always say, ask your doctor about blah, blah, blah. Well, guess what, dude? You're it. You're my doctor. But some of the things I don't think I really need that. I don't need to ask my doctor about a med for, I don't know, Crohn's disease. I don't need to ask my doctor about that. But
wow, I don't know where you got Crohn's
I don't
from.
either. I randomly picked something that I probably wouldn't have. But there are certain things that affect a lot of people. And so one of the ones that actually you suggested after shooting down my really good ideas, is something you work with your patients a lot, but affect a ton of people. And that is obstructive sleep apnea. This is not just snoring. This is beyond this. But some people who snore, many people who snore do have this. So let's get into the nuts and bolts of the definition of it. And then we can differentiate it from just common snoring.
So I kind of like what you said. This is beyond sports.
And this is beyond snoring. Yeah.
So when we talk about OSA, it's always good to start off with the numbers, right? So in the United States, about 40 million people have OSA. In the world, almost 1 billion. So this is going to be something that we want to talk about. And when we talk about obstructive sleep apnea, what does the word apnea mean? Apnea means no flow. Flow of what? Air. No oxygen coming in, no carbon dioxide coming out. And how long do you have to have no flow there when you're sleeping to be considered even just one apneic event? It's like 10 seconds. Hannah, if me and you just not talk for 10 seconds, you know how long that will be?
I mean, we could try it, but let's not.
I don't know if it's worth a demonstration, but just imagine someone putting a pillow over your head for 10 seconds a night. You know what I mean? That's an apnea. And the whole thing is about the stereotypes. I think that when we talk about obstructive sleep apnea, the obstruction's not here in my belly. Whereas the obstruction is in the back of our mouth. You know what I mean? Where your tongue, your tonsils, your uvula, your soft palate. So having the stereotype that someone with OSA has to be a man, has to drive a truck, has to be eating Cool Ranch Doritos at the same time.
Excessively overweight. Yeah.
You know, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, definitely being overweight and obesity is associated strongly with that. And definitely drug companies who make drugs like Zepbound are definitely cashing in on it. But people who look like you and me, Hannah, we may have obstructive sleep apnea. Snoring is a set-off for it. But not everyone who has obstructive sleep apnea needs to have heroic snoring. And let me just throw one more thing out there is that when it comes to our patients, we as clinicians do a poor job in diagnosing obstructive sleep apnea in women, which doesn't surprise me. We always do a horrible job with women. We do a bad job in diagnosing heart disease, COPD, which is that emphysema type lung, and obstructive sleep apnea, because women present a little bit differently. It's not always, do you snore like a velociraptor? That's not the question we always have to ask. For them, it could be a workup for fatigue, a workup for insomnia, a workup for depression. So we need to start respecting and making the correct diagnosis and treating, which is easier said than done.
But to your point, a friend of mine who was incredibly fit, a fitness model, went in and gave some history that indicated maybe a sleep study was warranted. Did a sleep study. They got him up like within 45 minutes and they're like, you've already hit the number. That means that you can just go home because we're done. Like making you go through the entire night and also pick up your CPAP on the way out and I was like, what? You have sleep apnea? Like you're in perfect shape. And it didn't matter. Like worked out every day, did not matter. It can happen to anybody. What are the risks associated with OSA?
Great question. So, all right, number one, that how does sleep apnea present? That it doesn't always have to be sleep type complaints. It could be headaches when you wake up in the morning. You could imagine having low oxygen at night. For night people, the nighttime symptoms can include nocturia, running to the bathroom quite a bit. During the day, it could be memory problems and just having some brain fog during the day. So don't always think of just having snoring questions. What can happen if you have untreated obstructive sleep apnea? It contributes to developing type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease, stroke. It contributes to dementia. It contributes to just for our younger folks, our accuracy, our memory, taking a test, all these things put together. So definitely having poor quality sleep affects every single organ in the body. And you could imagine this, just to be a little scary, doctor. Hannah, at nighttime, I'm going to ask this to you. What do you think happens to our heart rate and our blood pressure when we sleep? Does it go up or down?
No, it drops.
It should. You know why? Because at nighttime, we need to give our heart a break.
Yep.
But if you have obstructive sleep apnea and you're not breathing throughout the night, what happens to our heart rate and our blood pressure? It's elevated. So
because it has to work harder to get the oxygen
during the day and at night. It never gets a break. And that's why heart disease is so associated with this.
Interesting. But the other things that you said, well, heart disease being one of them, diabetes, type 2, specifically diabetes being another one. Those are other things. We're in this like weird gray diagnosis area where it could be obesity. It could be a whole bunch of things. So going, it might be your sleep or this OSA, this obstructive sleep apnea. That's so challenging for you guys to be like, it could be like 82 things. I think it's this.
And, one way that helps us is that there are definitely going to be validated questionnaires out there. And one of the questionnaires out there is called the STOP Bang. It's an acronym, like the S stands for snoring. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, there are ways that help us out, but you're right. Sometimes it's often misdiagnosed and underdiagnosed. And let me just focus on this, is that if you even vaguely suspect that your loved one has obstructive sleep apnea, there's only one thing to do: order a sleep study. And things have come a long way. In the olden days, you had to go to a sleep lab and you sleep in a sleep lab with all these things attached to your head and heart and legs and arms. You kind of look like Frankenstein. There's a camera filming you at night. No one sleeps during the sleep study.
Right.
But now we have home sleep studies that are minimally invasive. What do I mean by minimally invasive? Maybe just something on your finger. Maybe sometimes they'll just stick something right on your head and just, oh my God. So they're very minimally invasive.
Wow.
And you sleep in your own bed with your own favorite pillow and blanket at your own time. You know what I mean? Because in the olden days, a sleep study runs from like 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. and everyone's like, I don't even go to bed at 10. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it really is a game changer. The results of a home sleep study are validated. So there's no excuses. If you think your loved one has it, get evaluated and get treated.
another reason why sometimes women maybe were misdiagnosed, because it's challenging with, if they have children, are they leaving their kids? Now they've got to worry about childcare if they don't have a partner that's at home. There's a lot of complications with this, but
Yeah.
it could be that the heart disease and the diabetes are begetting the sleep apnea, or the sleep apnea could be contributing factor to having these be a risk. So it's real. Again, 2 shows in a row, I say chicken or the egg. We don't know.
and
It could be
we
something
just
for everybody.
and women always get it hard, and you just in sleep in general throughout the life. Women have to go through pregnancy, and that's not a fun time to get sleep
Nope.
during and after. Then you got the menopause in there, so it's tough. You know what I mean? Not to mention, most women are like my type A tigers who are great mom, working hard, doing all these things. It's not surprising women are not getting enough sleep. You know what I mean?
No, for the most part, women are just at it all the time.
Yeah.
The people I know, we're just like, and then our brains are always busy worrying about the things we're not doing. So,
And then when you finally
for
get
us.
a chance to sleep, you're like, damn, I really needed that. So,
I really needed. You give me a rainy afternoon, I get a nice nap in. I'm like, I feel like $1 million. I totally needed that. People say, "Oh, you went on vacation. What did you do?" I'm like, I slept a lot because I was able to. Getting back to obstructive sleep apnea, what I have always seen, and I've seen people in my own family say, I don't want to go get a sleep study because then they're going to give me a CPAP. I don't want the CPAP. I'd rather just deal with the snoring. And I'm like, well, you're not the only one dealing with the snoring. Thank you very much. But what are our options? Because now CPAPs are very different. Like, they're almost silent. It's incredible.
So number one is that if you're snoring, make sure it's not obstructive sleep apnea.
Mhm.
Snoring won't kill you, definitely kill your bed partner, but
Yeah.
OSA will definitely kill you. And if you have obstructive sleep apnea, it really depends on, I'm usually treating the more moderate to severe individuals. Those are people that stop breathing at least 15 times per hour and above. And I'll treat people with mild obstructive sleep apnea if they are having daytime symptoms, or they have certain other what they call comorbidities like heart disease, lung disease, atrial fibrillation. So CPAP, for the listeners, stands for continuous positive airway pressure. It's pressured air that opens up the obstruction in the back of the mouth. It gets delivered from a device through a mask, and you get to choose the mask you want. So not everyone has to look like Darth Vader. You can pick one
There it is. We need a Star Wars reference.
And for the younger folks, Kylo Ren.
Yes.
But yes,
Yeah.
what's it called? You pick something that's going to be like over the nose if you want to go that route. But in broad strokes, what are the other options in there? That don't forget that there is, for certain individuals, mild to moderate obstructive sleep apnea, a dental device, a mandibular advancement, mandibles to lower jaw. When you pull it forward, it also pulls the tongue forward, opening up the airway. There's always our friends who are otolaryngologists, ENT doctors, that will do very specialized surgery if you're a candidate for that. One of their surgeries is implanting a device called the Inspire device. That's a brand name.
Yep.
Which essentially, I'm not joking, Hannah, is a tongue stimulating device. It's an implantable device where you implant it like underneath the skin, under the right chest, and one of the wires connects to your tongue, through the hypoglossal nerve, and your tongue goes forward every time you breathe. And then, let me just say this, let's not forget lifestyle modifications. And of course, the thing I want to mention is we have a drug that got FDA approval for people who have obstructive sleep apnea and are overweight and obese. And the brand name is Zepbound, which is what we call a GLP-1 agonist. It's kind of like Ozempic, but not super really. And they have good, strong data that shows that it does help out people because, like we mentioned earlier, overweight, obesity, unfortunately goes hand in hand in many individuals who have OSA.
All right. We did a show on the GLPs and we talked about Zepbound. How does it work by helping with weight loss and therefore you have less of a contributing factor to causing the OSA?
When we talk about Zepbound, that got FDA approval for weight loss in itself.
Yeah.
I mean, its brother is named Mounjaro. They got the diabetes indication. So the way I look at it is that, yes, I think if you're losing weight, it's going to help out with your breathing. And data has shown that in people who were using CPAP and not using CPAP. They're trying to convince me that there are other things going on there too. But yes, one dimensionally. But of course, when you are losing weight and you have the optimal weight that you should have, we know that obesity is associated with cancers, heart disease, all these other things that are attached to not being in your optimal weight. So you are getting other benefits too. But yes, Hannah, one dimensionally, it's a medication. But once again, you have to do the lifestyle modifications. It's not a magic bullet. You stop the drug, things you're going to start gaining weight again. And you really have to be under the care of someone who's familiar with these drugs. You have to titrate it slowly at the right dosings and just be careful. You know what I mean? I think right now it seems like everyone's an obesity expert out there, but you really want to be with people who really know what they're doing.
Yeah, no, I mean, the fact that you can pull up an app and order it and have it delivered to your house makes me a little nervous.
That's freaking scary. And you're 100% right.
Yeah. But I mean, I do have like Doctor on Call where I can just text you and go, dude, I have a question. It's you.
Because
it's Dr.
I love you.
Likewise. It's Dr. Raj here with me, Hannah Stanley. It is Beyond Sports. But you said something and it occurred to me that we hadn't really clarified the difference, because just because you're snoring doesn't mean you have obstructive sleep apnea. But oh my gosh, what's the difference? Because it involves snoring. So that's...
So, I mean, don't get me wrong that OSA is strongly associated with it, but there's some individuals, once you take a sleep study, you won't know unless you do the sleep study, that sure, when you're actually breathing the tissue in the back of your pharynx, that uvula, which is the punching bag, all that tissue is vibrating all over the place. So you could treat snoring with, anytime you treat OSA, you treat snoring.
Right.
But if it's just snoring itself, there are certain, whether it be talking once again to the otolaryngologist, doing muscle exercises, there's certain things that you can do. And I forgot to even mention positional therapy. Most people who snore, who have obstructive sleep apnea, it happens on your back because of the gravity effect. So definitely positional therapy is definitely going to play a role in that too.
So if you sleep more face down or face angled, so you're not on your back and gravity doesn't pull your mandible back, your lower jaw, so that helps. That's really interesting.
Yeah,
I mean,
and that, for me, just put a couple pillows behind your head. You know what I mean? Just be propped up a little bit.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? That might help. Or sleeping on the side or on the side.
So you can't sleep on your back, but more positioned upwardly.
Yeah, if you sleep flat on your back, which they call supine. Yeah, you can just imagine that tongue just blocking off the airway right there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay, tonsils. What do tonsils like? Do people who don't have their tonsils, do they not have this?
So when you go see an otolaryngologist and take a look at the back of your mouth, some people still got their tonsils. You know what I mean? Be careful when you talk about kids. That's a spicy topic in itself. You know what I mean? I don't want kids just running to get their tonsils taken out. But
just for this preventative,
no way, Jose. I wouldn't do that.
It's a hard surgery.
But it's surgery and it's kids, and what's our endpoint? You might grow out of it. You know what I mean? But when we talk about adults, maybe you still may have enlarged tonsils, it's an obstruction. And that's something based upon the evaluation that ENT doctors do, some of them who specialize in sleep. One of their moves, it's called a DISE, D-I-S-E, drug-induced sleep endoscopy. So what they'll do is that they, in an OR, operating room type setting, they'll push a medication that will make you sleepy, and they take a small little camera and go through your nose and actually see where the collapse is. And if your collapse is kind of like the lateral part of the mouth, the tonsils coming in, they may recommend it. So in the olden days, it used to be surgery, but no, not one size fits all. It's very tailored to specific individuals when they decide to go the surgical route.
Yeah, there are so many advances. I remember my daughter once had really like crazy enlarged tonsils, and the doctor was like, need to go to the ENT. I went to the ENT, and I really appreciated it. She was like, I don't want to do this if you don't have to. Like, this is because sometimes surgeons like to cut, right? We all know this. But this one was like, let's give it 6 months. And see.
Exactly.
And they did. They came right down. It was fine.
That is wonderful. And I'm glad we said that on air because that's important. You know what I mean?
It is. It is. And we were able, under medical guidance, to do wait and see. And that worked out, because what I learned was that is not, when you're little, our age, we always, I don't know, I used to like watch it like an after school special kind of thing of, Jimmy gets his tonsils out and his friends bring him ice cream, and he like, it's a hard recovery. That is not
Yeah.
an easy surgery. So if it is what is recommended by your doctor, and different opinions if you want to go that route, and we encourage that, of course. There are different ways, but it's not all the same surgery like when we were little and when
No.
our parents were little.
Not at all. And, and even though we're not talking a lot about the device CPAP itself, you started this segment by saying they're quieter, they're smaller. And you're right, Hannah. I think that, the big thing is what you described in your friend who had that sleep study. It sounded like an in-lab study. It was so bad during that study. What they do often something called a split night, where right in the middle of the night, they wake you up and slap a mask on your face because it was so bad they want to treat you. And, evidence has showed that your first exposure to a CPAP mask and device, if you have a bad experience, you're probably not going to use it. You know what I mean? So I think it's something for most of my patients, if it's indicated, after they get the study, they meet with me, we talk about it. I don't surprise them, because I think what really makes me sad is that many doctors will order a sleep study and not really tell their patient, what does it mean once it's positive and what I'm going to offer him and why are we offering this? You know what I mean?
Yes.
So I think that giving your patients a heads up and talking about what we can do is going to be important.
Okay, so let's assume we're moving forward. I have a sleep study, let's say, and I need a CPAP. What's that ramp up time? By the way, I haven't had one and I don't need one as far as I know. But anyway.
When you have a CPAP device, there are definitely some bells and whistles that will help you with the comfort. And there's a ramp mode, which means that let's say you have a traditional CPAP with a pressure of making it up 10. So when you turn the device on, instead of going right to 10, it will slowly ramp up the pressure to 10.
Sure. Like we do on a Vitamix. Yeah.
Another little comfort mode is called an end expiratory relief, and some people will use the brand name C-Flex. And what does that mean is that, let's say, once again, you have the pressure of 10. At the end of your breath, the end of expiration, it will slowly ease the pressure up a little bit so it's not as rough when you're breathing out. So, and you definitely want to use the humidifier because you don't want to dry out your mouth. So I always tell my folks to use the humidifier. And when you get most devices, it has a place to store water into it. And you got to use distilled water. And people ask me why. It's because you don't want to damage the machine. So you got to use some distilled water in there. Yep.
Yeah. But these are things that I've never, again, I don't have one, but my dad has one. And, you try to help be a good daughter. But I've never seen distilled water in his room. So I don't what do I know? Maybe he's very diligently putting it into the bathroom, but I think he's just putting in regular. However, it is much smaller than the first or second machine he has had, and it is next to silent. I could always tell if he was sleeping because I could hear it before I would walk upstairs. And now I have no idea if he's sleeping. I just have to knock and, let the chips fall where they may. But
and be grateful that your dad's not putting like Gatorade in the device, dude.
Well, now he's going to listen to it and be like, that's a great idea. We'll try some Red Bull. That would be that because of his insomnia. I don't know. I'm just wrapping in our last show. But yeah, there have been tremendous advances in sleep science, but obstructive sleep apnea, you said earlier, 40 million people currently estimated, but really close. 40 million people in America have this. Is it that common global? You said a lot of people, almost 1 billion people, but is there something that we're doing dietarily or is it more common here?
No,
obesity is more common.
Obesity is a epidemic everywhere, and I do want to say that, when we talk about the importance of treating obstructive sleep apnea, is that it really helps individuals who have that daytime sleepiness, who say, you know what, hey, Hannah, hey, Raj, I'm sleeping 7 to 9 hours, but I'm still super tired during the day. And why is that important? How does treating sleep apnea save anyone's life on the spot? How about when you're like, if you have untreated OSA and you're driving that car, that truck, that school bus, whatever it is, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And you just take that 1 second doze off, or you just kind of rear to the other lane, it really does help people out. And I will say, where do I see a life changing is when, hey, during the day, they really could go out and now they can work out and now pay attention during a lecture and now drive safely, now do these things. So even though, yes, treating your obstructive sleep apnea is going to do wonders for other parts of your health, there is oodles of data that say that it will make you more alert and function better during the day.
Better decision making,
Oh, yeah.
better mood. Nobody likes the grumpy,
sleep and
tired
mood
person.
go hand in hand. You know what I mean? If you get poor sleep or poor quality sleep, whether it's insomnia or OSA, of course you're going to be grouchy during the day. Of course you're going to be short-tempered. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So no, that's important.
I had a night, and it was through no fault of like natural occurrence. I had something that kept me up very late, like 1 a.m. And then I have a puppy who gets me up at 6. That's her rule, and I have to play by it. So I had 5 hours of sleep. And by the time I was wrapped up the following day, I was cashed. There was nothing left in the tank. There was no coffee that I could coffee out of this. It was all I could do. My kids are like, "Are you okay? You just seem really upset. You're just so grumpy. Like this isn't you." And I'm like, I barely slept. 5 hours is not enough for me. And now I know this in my life. But it had nothing to do with sleep apnea. It was just an actual timing issue.
Yeah.
So it was so easy to be aware of it. So people who just think that's who they are, that might not be. You might not be Oscar the Grouch. You could just really have really disrupted sleep.
Yes. And remember, one of my favorite mottos, Hannah, is that sleep is all about the 2 Qs, right? The quantity and the quality. And last month, we were talking about the quantity of sleep, people who suffer from insomnia. And if you haven't heard that episode, everyone go check it out. Yeah. And now we're talking about the quality. I'm getting enough sleep, but I'm not going to the deep stage. I'm not getting REM sleep. Why? These apneic events keep on reoccurring throughout the night. And I need to change that. I need to address that to get that good quality sleep.
All right. So aside from obviously talking to your medical provider and being incredibly honest, right? Yep. With what is going on with you. But train of thought. Maybe I love train of thought, man. Sleep.
This is a real podcast. I love it.
No, but aside from that, are there any things that we can do? Losing weight, of course. Yeah. Right. Sure. But are there anything else that we can do over the counter or supplement or eating or not eating? This is just the thing that happens. We can't do anything unless we talk to our doctors or without doctors.
Well, I think the rule number 1 is that you got to make the right diagnosis first. Mm-hmm. And I think that there's many ways to think about it, whether it's going to be your bed partner that is elbowing you about, hey, you're snoring too much. And I had my own train of thought. Don't let me leave the air without talking about what's it called? Taping your mouth. You know what I mean?
Oh God. Okay.
Or what are other ways to realize you have it? There are definitely going to be apps on your Apple Watch or to give you a heads up that you may be at risk for having sleep apnea and go talk to your doctor. There's so many ways. It's easy to get tested. Get tested first. Know you have it, how severe it is. Let's do that part first. And yes, obstructive sleep apnea, even though we always say CPAP is the gold standard, it's not. One therapy does not fit everyone. And I think that's what our conversation is. And I want to mention also mouth taping. OMG. You know what I mean?
Is this a thing?
Well, if you Google it, you Amazon it, it's all over the place.
No.
And we could have talked about mouth taping in many different segments. We could have talked about it during insomnia. Mm-hmm. And it scares me that why are you taping someone's mouth? And if you're taping someone's mouth, don't get me wrong. I love breathing through my nose. Nasal breathing is good for many different reasons. You know what I mean? But let's say that you didn't get tested and you have obstructive sleep apnea. You're not going to treat that obstructive sleep apnea by slapping tape on your mouth. Right. So please get tested first. And even if you don't have obstructive sleep apnea, taping your mouth doesn't improve insomnia. It doesn't improve any of these things. And
I think I would find it annoying.
I 100% agree with you. So, but the take home message for safety for everyone listening here is before you tape your mouth, be sure to ask the question, why are you doing it? What do you hope to accomplish? And if you're doing it because of snoring, please get evaluated for obstructive sleep apnea first.
Yeah, snoring is not just something that happens when you get older. There could be, and oftentimes are underlying reasons, but the internet is not going to fix that. Your doctor might be able to. Dr. Raj Dasgupta, my guest today, and at the beginning of every month. Boy, next September is next. I cannot believe that. Yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, it's August. It's my birthday, August the 18th, everyone. So wish me a happy birthday.
Happy birthday. I love that you're like a little kid with your birthday. It's the best. So we will come up with more great content and topics for the next several months as we wrap up this year. But so far, we're just getting into like late Q3. So Dr. Raj Dasgupta, my guest, Hannah Stanley here. It is Beyond Sports, and I will talk to you next week.